Hello and welcome. Um, I know it's been a while since I've done the last video. I've kind of come interspersed a bit the last few, but I've had a lot of motivation and energy issues. So uh, you'll have to forgive me for that. I do sincerely apologize. But um, with that said, I have prepared our next video, and it will be on the Greek Primordials. Basically, you have the Greek gods, before them were the Titans, and before them were the Primordials. But I do have my notes. That's why I keep looking away, keep checking. But yeah, so we're going to kind of talk about them in general. We're not going to really focus too much, except maybe on Gaia and Uranus or Uranus. Um, so, but um, one name to call them besides primordials is the protogenoi, or it might be easier if you say protogenoi, but I say protogenoi, knowing that most languages don't have the double uh, consonant sounds like English. So it's more likely protogenoi. And again, my apologies. I will butcher a lot of these words. I don't speak Greek. I have no full understanding of the Greek language. So let me apologize beforehand. Um, but the protogenoi, which means firstborn, um, they're what we call the primordials, the spirits of the universe. Basically, they existed, they birthed the Titans, and then the Titans birthed the Greek gods, if you want to get into Greek mythology. Um, but yeah, they're the primordial deities of ancient Greece. So essentially, they're the grandparents of the Greek pantheon. Um, there seems to be little confirmation of the order um, that they existed in, because there's a number of different poets and um, philosophers from Greece that wrote on these primordial deities, but um, they often didn't correlate the same order that these deities spawned in. So the only one that seems to have appeared first, and we're going to use mainly Hesiod's theogony or history of the protogenoi. But Hesiod said that in the beginning there was only the primordial force of chaos. Um, and he was, well, the form of chaos was basically just the void, the nothingness. Um, Next in line is kind of confusing, like I said, because Hesiod is the one I mainly use, but there's other writers such as Aristophanes, Homer. Um, I mean, there's so many that you can pick from. But often the ones you'll see mentioned are Gaia, which is the Mother Earth or the spirit of the earth. Tartarus, which is Hell's pit or the abyss. Um, let's see. Nyx, which is the embodiment of night. And Erebus. Erebus is darkness. Erebus and Nyx, they do consort with one another, do mate with one another, and give birth to Aether and Hemera, which Aether represents light or heaven, and Hemera represents the day. So night and darkness give birth to light and day. And that's kind of how the Greeks saw it. Now, these weren't necessarily anthropomorphic figures. These were more the personification of what they were. So, like, say, Nyx was more personification of the night. Aether more of a personification of the day. Tartarus more of a personification of hell. It weren't so much that they were actual living beings, but they did have an existence, a personality. Just so you kind of understand. Now, one more that's kind of important early on, and it's kind of confusing because of the different makeups, but Eros, or as you know him in Latin, Cupid. He was originally a protogonoi, one of these primordial forces, primordial deities, and represents love. But in other other forms of the mythos, he was actually the son of Aphrodite and Ares. So the Greek pantheon and the history is a bit twisted and hard to really make out with all the different tellings and retellings. But of course, there are more of these forces. But Gaia gave birth virginally, no copulation whatsoever, to Pontius, Berea, and Uranus or Uranus. So she birthed those three from her, which Pontus is the sea, Aurea is the mountains, and Uranus is usually known as the sky or father sky. Now, we mentioned that Nyx, along with Erebus, gave birth to Aether and Hemerus. Well, by herself, she gave birth to Moros, the Oneiroi, Nemesis, Momus, Philotes, Geras, Thanatos, Hypnos, Eris, Apote, and Oisis, Keres, and the Moirai. Now, as I mentioned before, kind of give you an idea of who each of these were. Pontus, as I said, kind of a representative of the sea. Aurea was representative of the mountains, and Uranus was representative of the sky. So you had Mother Earth and Father Sky, as the Greeks saw them. As for the ones Nyx gave birth to by herself, there's Moros, who is the form of doom. The Oneiroi, I guess it's the Oneiroi, which were actually demigods responsible for your dreams. So whether you had nightmares or peaceful dreams, it was due to the Oneiroi. Nemesis, who is the form of retribution. Momus, who is the form similar to blame. He basically is the figure of blame. Philotes is the personification of affection, friendship, or sex. Geras is the god of aging. Thanatos is death. Not a god of death, but death itself. Hypnos is sleep. Eris is the personification of strife and discord. Apate is deceit. Oisis is grief, distress, and anxiety. The Keres were female death spirits. And the Moirai were also known as the Three Fates. Now, if you look at their names and you look at their parentage, you can kind of see a lot of key similarities. Like Gaia gave birth to the mountains, the sea, and the sky. So the earth gives birth to the mountains, the sea, and the sky. And Nyx, as I said, gives birth to all these others. So Moros, who is the god of doom. So you have the god of doom, the demigods of dreams, um, the god of blame, the god of retribution, the god of sex and affection, the god of aging, death itself, the god of sleep, the god of strife and discord, the god of deceit, the god of grief and anxiety, death spirits with the Chronos, and then the three fates by Nyx. So remember, Nyx represents night, and you have all those different things being birthed from night: doom, dreams, retribution, blame, affection and sex, uh, aging, death, sleep, strife, deceit, anxiety, distress, um, the death spirits of the Keres, again, death for the night, and then you also have the three fates. That's excuse me. As far as their names giving birth, you can see a lot of modern words born from these names. For example, Moros, the god of doom, or the form of the personification of doom, is very similar to our word morose, which is very kind of crestfallen or immensely distraught and sad. Nemesis is also a word we recognize as your foe, the one who is your true enemy. It is the god of retribution. Philotes, kind of, he's the god of sex and affection and friendship. Kind of puts me in the mind of the word philander, Philotes. Let's see. Geras. Think of the word geriatric. Geras, and then geriatric, Geriatic. You can see a lot of roots from these names. Hypnos, of course, is sleep, kind of like hypnosis. So, but on we go to more on the actual primordials themselves. Gaia had another child, but it was with Tartarus. They ended up together having the primordial deity Typhon. And Typhon is the primordial force of storms. But it's sometimes said to have been created by Hera and other tellings of the myth. So you had Typhon. Again, I'm using mainly Hesiod's telling of the primordial deity pantheon, though. Now, we get to the main telling of a big part of the Greek history. Gaia and Uranus. Remember, Uranus is her own son that she virginally gave birth to, the sky. So here is the Earth in the sky. Um, they birthed a race of Cyclops. They weren't the only ones to birth Cyclops, though. They were also part of Poseidon's domain. Well, yeah, Poseidon's domain later. Yeah, I was trying to make sure Poseidon and Neptune. The transition between Latin and Greek names are often confusing, but I was trying to make sure. So in Greek it was Poseidon. Um, you can often tell the difference by just thinking of the planets, because the Latin gods, the Roman gods, their names are the ones the planets are named after. So, um, anyway, but they gave birth to some of the Cyclops. They gave birth to the Hecatonchires, or the Hundred Handers, um, and Echidna, or the Mother of Monsters. Um, they also gave birth to the Titans. So it was Uranus and Gaia who gave birth to the Titans. Now, um, one of the things was that Uranus, or Uranus, however you want to use this Greek or Latin name, whichever you prefer, but I usually say is Latin name because it's a little easier. But I think his Greek is Uranus. I'll try to use that from now on. But Uranus, he didn't mind his other children, but he hated the Hecatonchires, the Hundred Handers. He despised them, and not wanting to have to look at them, he hid them away. Um, Gaia, in kind of grief and dismay at the way her sons had been treated, called to her other children for help. Well, the Titan Chronos stepped forward. Now, Chronos went ahead and set a trap for Uranus. Um, when he sprang it, he slit open Uranus as he killed him. But from Uranus's blood was birthed um, giants, also known as the Gigantes, um, the Arañes, or Arañes, which you'll better know as the Furies, and the yeah, the Melanae, which is a type of nymph. Um, so they were born from his blood. Um, Now, in some of these myths, as I said, it kind of differs, but uh, in some of them, he castrates Uranus, and um, Uranus's member hitting the ocean the foam forms Aphrodite in some myths. Other myths, she is actually conceived in other ways. Uh, but by some, she's formed by Uranus being castrated and his member falling into the sea. And then the foam forms Aphrodite. So, afterward, Chronos kind of takes over as ruler. He's unchallenged. Um, Now, there are other primordials that are talked about, but I couldn't find too much of another mention of them without going too deep into them. So we'll just kind of list them off and what they stood for. Um, Ackless was the personification of misery. Physis was the personification of nature. Ananke was the personification of compulsion. Chronos was the personification of time. He's not to be confused with the Titan Chronos. This is Chronos, who is time, which, as we know in our world, Chronos or chronal or chronometer, so on, deals with time. And that's what Chronos was. He was the primordial force of time. Aeon is the primordial force of eternity, which I'm uncertain on that, but I think it may have to do with like the word eon. May not be completely right on that though, so I can't promise anything on that. But Himeros is the force of tension. Phanes is the force of procreation. Nasoi is the primordial deity of islands. Thalassa was also a primordial deity of the sea. So you had a male form and a female form of the sea. So, well, a male deity, a male primordial deity, and a female primordial deity of the sea. So, you had Ophion, who was life, representative of life. And as I said, I kind of base this on the theogony offered up by Hesiod, because it seems to be the most precise we have. But that's kind of the general story of the protogenoi, or the primordial deities. Basically the firstborn, as the name indicated. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you want me to go a little further into the Greek history, let me know. We'll talk about the Titans, or if you want me to go into like specific ones, we can do that as well. But remember to educate yourself, read, study, and learn. Education is always useful, always important. An uneducated population usually accomplishes little and are often forgotten by history. Um, but yeah, I will have my sources listed in the description below. So I hope you enjoyed. I'll talk to y'all again, and I'll try to start getting these back out on the Monday, Friday, Wednesday, Friday basis. But later.